same tomorrow. God bless you both.
I just want to say I love you both. You look great together, and she's been looking her whole life for a good guy. I couldn't ask for a better one. I love you guys.
To do good things and like motivate you. It's not like a wishy-washy.
Mom just never thought she was good enough.
So then what was the bulk of the wedding about?
It was just my mom and pretty much my sister just don't like her.
Oh.
They just thought that Shanann had taken me away from them beyond Colorado.
I'm definitely...
I couldn't ask for a better man for her.
If you believe every victim deserves to be remembered and every truth deserves to be told, subscribe to The Crime Narrator. These stories live on because you're here to hear them.
Long before the tragedy that shocked the nation, there were quiet tensions within the family of Chris Watts. Years before his name became associated with one of the most widely discussed criminal cases in recent history, there was a wedding that should have brought two families together. Instead, it revealed the first signs of a deep and complicated divide. When Chris Watts married Shanann Watts, many people expected it to be a joyful event filled with family and celebration. Weddings are often the moment when parents stand proudly beside their children as they begin a new chapter of life. But in this case, something unusual happened. Chris Watts' mother, Cindy Watts, made a decision that surprised many people close to the family. She did not attend the wedding. To outsiders, the absence raised immediate questions. Friends and relatives reportedly wondered why a mother would miss such an important moment in her son's life. At first, the reasons remained largely private, discussed only within close circles. According to people familiar with the situation, disagreements had already begun forming between the two families before the marriage took place. The tensions were not always public, but those closest to the situation knew there were disagreements that had not been resolved. For Chris Watts, the wedding day was still meant to be a celebration of a new beginning. He moved forward with the ceremony and started building a life with Shanann. Yet the absence of his mother did not go unnoticed. Some later wondered whether that moment, the empty seat where his mother might have been, symbolized deeper family conflicts that would continue to grow over the years. At the time, however, very few people imagined that this quiet family tension would one day be discussed in connection with a tragedy that would capture national attention. And as the story unfolded in the years that followed, those early family divisions would become part of a much larger and more complicated narrative. If you want to understand what happened next and why these tensions continued to grow, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of this story. After the wedding, life seemed to move forward for Chris Watts and Shanann Watts.
When and where did he meet Shanann?
They met and he liked her, she liked him, but I don't think it was love at first sight or anything. They took a little while and I guess got to know each other and, dated. It was always a little strange that she always said a lot of things about Chris in front of me that I didn't like. Like, this isn't the kind of person I would date. He doesn't know how to do this, or he doesn't know how to do that. He looks like a skater boy. Look at his hair. Look how much stuff he puts on his hair. It was just on and on and on, and I just got a bad feeling.
And they got married in 2012. Did they get married in North Carolina?
They did. Mm-hmm.
How was that?
Oh, we didn't attend.
Really?
Mm-mm. We didn't attend because Shanann and I just couldn't get along. And I didn't like the way she treated him.
They began building their life together, sharing moments online, traveling, and eventually starting a family. From the outside, everything looked like the picture of a growing young family. But behind the scenes, the relationship between Shanann and Chris's family remained complicated. The absence of Cindy Watts at the wedding had not completely healed with time. According to various accounts shared later, there were still disagreements and misunderstandings that continued to create distance between them. Family dynamics can be complex, and in this case, communication often seemed strained. Small disagreements sometimes turned into larger issues, leaving both sides feeling misunderstood. Friends close to the family later said that while there were moments when things appeared to improve, tension often lingered just beneath the surface. As Chris and Shanann welcomed their children and continued building their life, interactions with Chris's parents sometimes became awkward or emotionally charged. Certain family visits reportedly ended with unresolved feelings, and the gap between the families never fully disappeared. For Chris Watts, this situation placed him in a difficult position. On one side was his wife and growing family. On the other side were his parents, who had been part of his life long before the marriage. Those close to the situation would later say that he often tried to avoid confrontation, choosing silence rather than addressing the disagreements directly. But silence, as many people know, can sometimes allow tension to grow instead of resolving it. Over time, the distance between the families became something that people around them quietly noticed. What began as a disagreement surrounding a wedding slowly turned into a deeper divide that would continue for years. And as the story unfolds, one particular family incident would later draw even more attention to the growing tension within the Watts family. As the years passed, the relationship between Chris Watts' family and Shanann Watts remained complicated. There were moments when things seemed to calm down, but the tension never completely disappeared. One particular family visit would later become a moment many people looked back on when trying to understand the dynamics within the family. During a trip to visit Chris's parents, the atmosphere reportedly became uncomfortable. What was meant to be a simple family gathering turned into a situation that left everyone feeling uneasy. Accounts later shared suggested that disagreements about everyday family matters quickly escalated into something more emotional. At the center of the situation was Cindy Watts. According to discussions that surfaced later, there were concerns raised about boundaries, parenting choices, and misunderstandings that had been building for years. Small issues that might normally be resolved with conversation instead deepened the existing divide. For Shanann, the moment reportedly felt like confirmation that the relationship with her mother-in-law might never fully improve. For Cindy, it was another example of how strained the connection had become since the early days of the marriage. Meanwhile, Chris Watts remained caught in the middle. People who knew him often described him as someone who avoided confrontation whenever possible. Instead of directly addressing the tension between the two most important women in his life, he often stayed quiet, hoping the situation would eventually calm on its own. But silence rarely fixes complicated family conflicts. Instead, unresolved emotions continued to build quietly over time. What seemed like a single disagreement was actually part of a larger pattern of strained communication and lingering resentment. Looking back now, many people believe those unresolved tensions were warning signs that something deeper was happening beneath the surface. As time passed, the distance between Cindy Watts and Shanann Watts didn't completely disappear. Instead, the relationship settled into something quieter, a kind of uneasy silence where both sides tried to move forward while avoiding the conflicts of the past. For Chris Watts, this silence created a difficult balancing act. On one hand, he was building a life with Shanann and their children. Their family appeared active and close from the outside, with trips, celebrations, and moments shared with friends and relatives. On the other hand, the relationship between his wife and his parents remained strained, and the emotional distance never truly healed. People close to the family would later say that Chris often tried to keep these two parts of his life separate. When he was with Shanann and the children, he focused on family life.
What do you know about their marriage and their issues?
Oh, very little. Very little. You can only observe. I could only observe what I saw when I was around them. Christopher always seemed anxious, and he when she needed something, I mean, he would run. He wouldn't walk, he would run, he would get it. He just always seemed to be right there at her beck and call.
And did that seem odd to you? Or?
Very odd. It was very odd. He just seemed nervous.
When conversations about his parents came up, he sometimes avoided them or tried to change the subject. But unresolved family conflict doesn't simply disappear. Over time, small disagreements turned into long periods where communication between the families became limited. Messages became less frequent. Visits happened less often. What had once been a close family connection slowly became something more distant. Some observers later wondered whether Chris felt pressure from both sides. As a husband and father, he had responsibilities at home. As a son, he still had ties to his parents, even though those relationships had become complicated. For years, this quiet tension remained largely private. Few people outside the family truly understood how complicated those relationships had become. But when the tragedy later shocked the country, people began looking back at every detail, including the early conflicts and the silence that followed them. After the tragedy that shocked the world, many people began looking back at every part of the story connected to Chris Watts and his family. The case involving Shanann Watts and their daughters led to countless discussions, documentaries, and investigations as people tried to understand how such a devastating event could happen. Among the many details revisited was the complicated relationship between Shanann and Chris's mother, Cindy Watts. Years earlier, Cindy's decision not to attend her son's wedding had raised quiet questions within the family. At the time, it seemed like a private disagreement, something that many families experience in different ways. But after the tragedy, some people began wondering whether that moment symbolized deeper tensions that had never truly been resolved.
So how much did you see them over these last 6 years?
Probably twice a year. We would go up there.
Did you stay with them, or?
Yeah, we would stay with them and stay a week and then come back home.
Tell me about Bella and Celeste.
Oh, Bella was just like Chris, just like him, shy, cautious, conservative. Cece was a ball of fire. I mean, she was fearless, completely fearless. She just loved to run. So they were wonderful. It breaks my heart to know that they're not here. They were beautiful children, beautiful children.
What did they call you?
Mimi.
Mimi? And how about Ronnie? What did they call?
Papa.
Do you think Chris loves Shanann?
Oh God, he loved her. Yes, I believe he loved her at first. I believe he did. But I think as the years went on, I think it just being in that kind of a relationship, which the social worker even said that marriage should have ended a long time ago.
Shanann's pregnancy and what did Chris tell you about that? Was he excited?
No, I don't think he was. I think it was a shock to him. And he said that they have been talking about divorce, that they are not compatible anymore, and he was not happy anymore. And I finally thought he's finally seen the light.
And I take it Chris had never been in trouble with the law?
Never. He's got one speeding ticket and didn't even know about that.
Tell me what happened when they were reported missing. What did you find out? How did you find out? Who told you?
I think Ronnie called me. Ronnie called me and said that they're missing, and I thought, I don't believe it. I didn't believe they were missing. I believed that she was going to punish Chris. She was just going to punish him, take the girls, and just punish him. I had no idea of anything else. Christopher called and said, Mom, they're searching the house. I said, okay, that's fine. I mean, and I still was not worried. I was not worried. I just thought Shanann had run off with girls.
So walk me through the sequence of events over the next few days. Did you and your husband travel to Colorado?
Ronnie did.
Okay.
Ronnie did. And, I mean, Christopher let everybody come in.
Family relationships can be complicated, especially when emotions, expectations, and misunderstandings build up over time. In the Watts family, those dynamics remained largely out of the public eye until the case suddenly brought every detail into national conversation. Looking back, some observers believe the early conflicts showed how strained communication had become between different members of the family.
Everybody come in, her phone is there, her purse is there, everything is there. But there's no kids and there's no Shanann. And I was not worried. You know, I thought she has just gone off and I'm going to punish you for this and you can worry about me. But when Christopher called us and he said, I said, do you want us to come down now? He said, tell Dad I need him. Tell Dad I need him to come down. I said, what about me? He said, no, Mom, just stay. Just send Dad. And he picked him up at the airport and they drove to the police station. And Chris still didn't say anything to him. Nothing. He had already been interrogated 7 hours prior to that. He had already let the police go into his home, search everything. He was going in for another interrogation. The next thing, after 5 hours, they called Ronnie and said that your son wants to talk to you before he tells us anything. And that's when Christopher broke down and cried and said, I'm sorry, Dad. He said, I went into a rage and I killed her after she killed Cece and Bella. And he found out where he is and then they wouldn't let him see him. He couldn't see him. And so he was going back to the airport when his public defender called him and told him to come back. So that's when Ronnie met his public defender. And so talked to her for a while. And they kept in touch with us and let us know what's going on.
And then what was the next update that you got? Was it?
The next update I got was Ronnie called Jamie and told them they found their bodies. And they rushed over here. Nobody told me anything until they walked through the door. And they told me what happened and I just fell to the floor. I just fell to the floor. It was unbelievable. And it's been unbelievable ever since. And
what did his attorneys tell you about contact with him, starting with his
none.
arrest?
No contact. Everything is recorded. No contact. No letter writing. I didn't see the harm in the letters. Hi son, love you, keep fighting. We are here to support you.
Others point out that family disagreements are common and do not predict future tragedies. What is clear, however, is that the Watts case left a lasting impact on everyone connected to it. For many people following the story, the early moments, the wedding absence, the family disagreements, and the years of silence now feel like pieces of a much larger and heartbreaking puzzle.
Support you. What is wrong with that? What can the DA do about letters like this? Why couldn't we just write him a letter? We did what we were told to do. When they called us to tell us that Chris was thinking of a plea, that he wanted to speak to us about it. And when we got down there, it was a lie. They wouldn't let us talk to him about anything. And then we had to talk to him through a screen and a phone. And he just looked, he was crying. I mean, he wasn't crying. You could see the movement in his mouth that when I talked about Bella and I talked about Cece and the memorial service that we had for them. And he asked what pictures did we use, and what was the song. You can see how he was trying to hold back tears.
What day was that? Do you remember?
Well, we flew in on that Monday. We flew in on Monday, and we saw him Monday night, and then the plea deal was on Tuesday.
So Monday night was when you wanted to talk to him about it? Yes,
and we weren't allowed. And it would have helped us so much to be able to talk to him. I wouldn't have to go through all this now. Everything just seems to be shrouded in secrecy. And just tell us what is going on. Let us ask Chris if it's okay if you talk to us. I just don't like the way it was handled from the very beginning. I don't like the way it was handled. I want to save your life, that's all. We're just here, we're going to save his life. We want him to get life in prison. It was like they already knew he was guilty. And this was the end of it.
Were you worried about the death penalty being a possibility?
No, I didn't care about the death penalty. Nobody's going to die in Colorado. I don't think anyone has. One person? And Colorado is changing. So people stay on death row forever. There was I think he'd be safer on death row. And our parents said that.
Today, discussions about the case often focus on understanding the human dynamics behind major tragedies. While no single moment can explain what happened, examining the relationships and tensions involved can offer a deeper perspective on the story. If you found this story insightful and want more detailed true crime breakdowns, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next chapter of stories like this.